Billy the Kid, one of the most famous outlaws of all time. Stay tuned to find out what really happened to him. Billy the Kid was one of the most famous American outlaws and gunfighters of the Old West. He was fast with a gun and known for his ability to escape bad situations. In 1870, he moved out west with his mother and brother. They ended up in Silver City, New Mexico. She got married and later became ill with tuberculosis. Just before she passed away, the stepdad left Henry and his brother. Henry was now abandoned at the age of 14. A year later, in 1875, he robbed a Chinese laundry, stealing clothes and pistols. He started stealing horses in 1876. In 1877, he changed his name and now was known as William Bonney. That August, Bonney was in a saloon in the village of Bonita. A bully named Francis Cahill came in and started an argument with him. They started calling each other's names and began fighting. The two struggled for Bonney's revolver. Bonney shot and mortally wounded Cahill. He joined a gang led by Jesse Evans. By November, they had a falling out. He was hired by a man named John Tunstall. Now, Tunstall was having a feud with the Dolan Company. They owed $8,000, but the Dolan Company had the sheriff, William Brady, in their back pocket. They were looking for $40,000 more. When they showed up in March 1878, Brady had a large posse with him to seize this cattle. Tunstall learned of the posse's presence and went to intervene. Two members from the posse murdered him in cold blood. Billy the Kid and the others escaped. They went and formed a gang called the Regulators. Bonney, along with 5 members of his gang, the Regulators, were hiding behind an adobe wall across the street. They ambushed Brady and Deputy George Hinman, killing them both. Later, they got into a gun battle, and Buckshot Roberts was killed also at the Blazers Mill. The Regulators were in trouble, so on July 4th, they were hiding out in the Chisholm's Ranch. Many people were killed, but Billy and the Regulators escaped. Billy the Kid decided to leave Lincoln County, but Governor George Wallace issued a proclamation of amnesty for the parties involved in the Lincoln County War. In January 1880, Billy the Kid did outfox a drunk man named Joe Grant. He has to check out Grant's gun. He purposely put the hammer onto empty cylinders. As Billy turns around, Grant becomes upset and pulls the gun on Billy, only to hear a click. Billy then turned and fired 3 shots into Grant, killing him. By November 1880, Pat Garrett was elected sheriff of Lincoln County. He goes after the kid, and the governor issues a bounty on his head of $500. By the end of November, he was surrounded at a place called the Great House Ranch. There was a massive shootout. One of the deputies was killed, and they blamed Billy, but it wasn't his fault. Billy kept on writing to the governor, pleading of his innocence, looking for a pardon. By December, Pat Garrett goes and gets very close to capturing Billy and his posse. They ambush him and his gang. By the end of December, Billy the Kid was tracked down by Garrett in a rock house in Stinking Springs. A couple hours later, after a standoff, Billy the Kid and his men surrender. He's brought to trial and convicted. He was sentenced to hang for the murder of Sheriff William Brady. While waiting execution, he was kept in lock and key in the Lincoln County Courthouse. He and 2 other prisoners were guarded by a pair of armed men. One of them was an old enemy of Billy the Kid named Bob Olinger. Olinger took 2 other prisoners across the street to a hotel for a meal. He left Billy in the care of Deputy James Bell. Now, there was no amenities in the jail, so Billy asked to use the outhouse or the privy. After he used the privy, Billy and Bell headed back inside. As they mounted the stairs back to the cell, Billy was in the lead, moving slowly because he was handcuffed and his feet were shackled. Now, Billy was kind of a smaller guy, so it seems that the handcuffs were one size fits all. As he was going up the stairs, he slid one of his hands out of his cuffs. He turned the heavy iron restraint into a weapon. He swung it at the end of the chain as he swiveled and hammered Bell right in the head. Now, Bell was dazed. He staggered. He was clutching his injured head long enough for Billy to jerk the deputy's gun from its holster. He pointed it right at Bell. All he wanted Bell to do was raise his hand and give up. Unfortunately, Bell unwisely chose to run. Billy the Kid, thinking there was no way out, shot Bell in the back. Olinger, hearing the gunshot, came out to see what was going on. When he saw his partner dead, he heard a familiar voice call his name from the balcony overhead. He looked up, saw Billy the Kid pointing his own rifle at him. He fired and Olinger was dead instantly. Billy took the guns, grabbed the horse, and rode out of town as the whole town was watching him. Now, he had less than 3 months to live after this. Pat Garrett responded to rumors that Bonney was in the vicinity of Fort Sumner. On July 14, 1881, he came to the residence of Pete Maxwell, a friend of Bonney's. Around midnight, he came into Maxwell's room and sat on the end of his bed. The accounts of this event are controversial. According to Garrett, here's what happened. Remarkably, at the precise moment a shadowy figure entered the room. Having nearly stepped on Garrett's 2 assistants who were lurking outside, he was carrying a butcher's knife and allegedly a gun. The knife was intended for carving a hunk of meat from the yearling Maxwell had recently butchered. Billy must have been hungry and looking for something to eat. As he entered the dark room, he moved to the head of the bed to speak to Maxwell. He failed to recognize Garrett due to the poor lighting, so when his eyes adjusted, he saw that Garrett was sitting at the edge of Maxwell's bed. He jumped back nervously, aiming his gun at Garrett and saying, "Who is it? Who is it?" Garrett then drew his revolver and fired twice. The first bullet hit Bonnie in the chest, the second one allegedly missed. Those were the last words that Billy the Kid ever said. Who is it? Who is it? However, there are many people that are skeptical of this version of the event, including author Marcel Brothers. They believe that Billy the Kid was romantically involved with Maxwell's sister Polita. Maxwell was unhappy about this and intended to marry Polita off to a wealthy landowner. Maxwell might have helpfully informed about this new visitor that he had, Billy the Kid. And he whispered to Garrett as Billy was coming in the room, "That's him." Garrett drew his gun and fired. Billy fell, struggled for a few minutes, and then allegedly died. Many think that Maxwell might have tipped off Garrett that Billy was coming to Fort Sumner. Garrett was known for ambushing people, as he had done previously with Billy's old friend Tom O'Folliard. They lured Billy into the dark bedroom. There he expected to find Polita. There are doubts that Billy was even armed. Now many believe that Billy was between the ages of 19 and 21. Here's something strange. Years later, Maxwell refused to even talk about the night that Billy died. The only account of this famed killing was from the killer himself, Garrett. Some believe Garrett's story to be implausible. Others believe that Billy actually got away and he lived to be an old man. Well, here's something that could back this up. In 1948, a probate investigator from St. Louis, William Morrison, had gotten in contact with a man named Brushy Bill Roberts. Roberts eventually confessed to being the Kid and detailed his exploits as an outlaw. He told some anecdotes that would fill in undocumented gaps of his life. He wanted to get a pardon that he was never given after writing several times from the governor. He showed Morrison how he slipped out of handcuffs. He showed him 22 bullet holes and scars that he had on his body. He said that Pat Garrett had actually shot and killed another gunslinger named Billy Barlow and had passed his body off as Billy the Kid's. That allowed the Kid to vanish and escape to Mexico. There were 3 witnesses to the killing of Billy the Kid: Pat Garrett and his 2 deputies, John Poe and Thomas McKinney. McKinney claimed to slightly know who the Kid was, but Poe had never seen him before. Moments after Garrett shot, Poe said that he had shot the wrong man. The room was dark and it was hard to identify anybody in there, but Garrett said he knew it was Billy's voice. Ultimately, Poe and McKinley agreed with Garrett, but McKinley recanted his stories years later. He claimed, just like Poe did before him, that Garrett had killed someone else, the wrong man. Garrett hastily assembled an official inquest by political cronies that he knew and clinched his claim of the killing and got all the outstanding rewards. The body was quickly buried the following day in a grave and vanished in floods over the years. The grave today probably has nothing even in it. Something really weird though, Brushy Billy also claimed to be a member of the James Younger gang as a teenager. So, was he Billy the Kid? No one will ever know. Brushy Billy died in 1950. Attempts to get the DNA have been fruitless. Well, we'll never truly know exactly what happened at Fort Sumter on the night of July 14, 1881. The only thing we really know is that Garrett did catch up with him, shot at Billy the Kid. William Bonney, aka Billy the Kid, was a notorious criminal who gained more fame after his death than when he was alive. His life was tragic, short, and very violent. But one good thing was, his friends knew him as a fun-loving guy who seemed to get mixed up in unfortunate situations. That is strange indeed. Thanks for watching. We'll keep the videos coming here on Strange History. Hey, check out our video on Bass Reeves, the ultimate lawman.